Hey, so we have helped multiple agency owners to launch their very own revenue generating SaaS product. Now in this video, I'm going to walk you through the exact strategy which we use to take agency owners from a SaaS idea into a functional MVP in just 30 days. These are all the things you need to consider before jumping into SaaS, things about development, things about setting up the process, design. We're going to hop all into it in a very short time frame. Okay, so here's the framework. We're going to start by talking about why you should even get into SaaS as an agency owner. Now, I've spoken to a lot of agency owners who have big SaaS ideas, but most people will never actually action their SaaS ideas, partly because they overestimate barriers to entry to SaaS, but also because they don't understand the full benefits that a SaaS business can bring to not just their lives, but their agency. Number one, you're no longer trading your time for money. Now, a typical problem in agencies is that is how you work. You bill per hour contracts, and with SaaS, you launch a project once, you can sell it to multiple people. All you've got to do is tweak it, update it, add new features, and ensure that you're staying ahead of the competition. Number two is, of course, MRR. You have the most predictable stream of revenue that you have from any business model. As long as the software product doesn't get kind of outdone by competition, you will have people who will use that product every month. And in fact, all that will happen is users will grow and grow and grow. And I think the most important reason is because agency owners, more than anyone, have an unfair advantage when getting into SaaS. You have niche expertise, which you can use. You have experienced the market, and the longer you've been an agency founder for, the more you'll know about the problems that your industry faces. So we'll talk about that in step two, but the next reason is an exit. So of course, many agency owners get into SaaS because of the exit opportunity which SaaS brings. So the typical numbers that are thrown around are kind of a 4 to 8x multiplier will occur when you exit your SaaS. Obviously, that can be huge if you create an incredible project. So step one is really important. This is what I will show to agency owners when they're thinking about launching a SaaS, and it's about picking your pathway. So number one is about basically automating your internal processes. So let's say you are a LinkedIn automation agency. Client might ask you for outbound LinkedIn messages. You go ahead, you deliver that with your team, you're repeating that system a lot, and by then you've probably developed a framework to do it really efficiently. And what you can do is turn that into a tool and sell access to the product rather than selling your time. That's great. There is a lot of competition with those sort of things. Obviously, you'll think other agency owners will already have created similar products. So I often think the biggest SaaS ideas come from pathway two. And this is about when you yourself or your clients or other agency owners face a particular problem. Now, you will know better than anyone that why this problem exists, that there aren't tools out there to solve it at the moment. You know what it should look like. You go ahead, you pitch this idea to a few people, and now you launch your MVP and land your first few users. The most important thing with SaaS is that you solve a problem. You don't have an idea. There's a big difference. Having an idea and solving a problem is the key differentiator you need to make when launching a SaaS product. So making sure you're solving a problem is the most important thing. And if you yourself are facing that problem, you know how to fix it. So nail the problem, not just the idea. On to number two, you know the problem you're solving. So let's sketch out the idea. We've got some kind of key terms we use when launching a SaaS. You've probably heard of MVP, stands for minimum viable product. And essentially, when you have an idea for a software product, you're going to have loads and loads of features, loads of things that can make this as cool as possible. But it's super important we validate demand before we build a SaaS product. Now, validating demand isn't just about going to people and saying you've got this idea and them saying it's great. You know, there are so many things you'll learn from building an MVP. For example, people will think that certain features should be placed elsewhere, the UX isn't quite right. So even if you've got budget to go big, it is so important that you start with an MVP. Every software product starts with an MVP, and it's annoying for most agency owners. It's really important you chat to your agency, if you're going for an agency, about what their expectations are for an MVP. I think some MVPs are so basic that you kind of getting ripped off. So it's a very general word. We kind of work more towards what we call an MLP, a minimum lovable product, something that isn't just a super boring version of your product. It's stripped back, but it's not stripped back to the point where it's just so dull and no one wants to use it. So it's really important that whoever you're talking to about building a software product, you have a clear expectation on what the MVP is. Okay, so here are the questions you want to be able to answer before you go ahead and develop your MVP. Number one is, what specific recurring problem does your SaaS solve? What is the ideal result your users want instead? What is one core functionality that your SaaS is focused on? And then what are 3 to 5 kind of less essential but still important features that will be used to deliver this outcome? Any features which do not fit into that category will go in the roadmap, the product backlog, anything that won't be used for version 1 for your MVP. You can deploy these later, but make sure your MVP ticks all of those boxes before you move on and create any other features. Okay, so you've got an idea for the MVP, and the next stage is going to be validation. You want to do the following. You start with a basic UI layout in Figma. So we call this a low fidelity design. Literally, let me show you what you do here. You would have a dashboard like this, and then you want to go ahead and you'd say things like this. You'd say, this section here is going to be profile views. I don't know, let's say we're building a dashboard. This section here is going to be database, data table with connections. I don't know, whatever you're building, do it like this. Just build out a super simple UX. It can be pen and paper. Ideally, we use something like Figma that I'm using to create something like this. Super simple, low fidelity design. Okay, so the next stage is then to go to about 20 to 50 people, I would say, and pitch your idea. 50 minutes on the phone, people you know from other agencies, your clients, go to them and ask these questions. Firstly, explain the pain. Validate that they also know the pain. Show a low fidelity concept. So this is what we talked about up here, your super simple, basic layout on Figma. Mention the competition. Now, this is something super important that no one else does. When you are pitching to your clients about your SaaS idea, I want you to show them directly the competition. It is so easy when we're in SaaS to trick our brains into thinking we've got the golden idea. And often the most painful bit is realizing that you don't have the perfect idea. Let me be very clear, competition is never a bad thing, and competition does not mean by any means that you cannot launch your software product, but it's super important to be aware of the competition and the barrier between what your MVP will be and the competition. If you see a roadmap where you can outdo the competition, and if you have a clear reason why, then absolutely you should be able to show the competition to your ICPs with absolute confidence. And then end the call asking, how much would you pay for this? Super simple, blunt question, which is really interesting to hear, because the other thing I'll see agency owners do is misprice their SaaS product. So often you might be charging $5,000 a month for your agency service, and you might now think charging $500 a month for your SaaS product is a great deal. Now, a lot of agency owners come from a sales background and struggle to differentiate between software pricing and between sales and kind of marketing pricing. It's super important that you understand the elasticity of pricing when it comes to launching a SaaS product. And what I mean by that is you might have some people who are going to pay $500 a month for your SaaS product, fine. But let's say you charge $20 a month for your SaaS product. You might now have thousands more users who are willing to pay for that product. It's basic consumer surplus. So it's super important that you understand a lower price for your SaaS does not mean you're going to have lower MRR. In fact, often there is a curve which will show a lower MRR, a lower price for your SaaS product is going to bring you higher rates of MRR. Super important, like who are you selling this to? If you're selling this to small to medium businesses, they are going to have a much lower monthly budget than big enterprise businesses. So just think basically, how much would you pay for this? If you ask 50 people and they answer how much they pay for this after seeing the competition, after seeing your low fidelity concept, then it is super easy to work out mean what would they pay for this and be able to price your product specifically. So ask people how much they're going to pay for this, because it's a question that people avoid and it's super important you ask. And once you've done that, I would often recommend building a landing page, something super simple like card, framer. Reason I say build a landing page is because it's not just about getting people to sign up and see the idea created. It's also for you. You lay out your sales pitch to this SaaS product. You lay out why it's unique. You lay out the features. And let's be honest, landing pages are not that difficult to build anymore. You can build one in a week, or you can build it in a day. Like, it's super idea to kind of conglomerate your thoughts together into a landing page. So use something like Framer, use something like Card, make it look good, get some signups, show it to ICPs. I would definitely recommend building a landing page, even though it's not completely essential. Okay, so step 4 is about preparing for development. Now, if you are a non-technical person, you don't know how to code, it's super important that you do understand a little bit about the development process. You don't have to know how to build your app completely from scratch, but it's super important that we kind of put things into the template that developers would understand. And it all starts with this. This is a classic thing that's done for, what the fuck is it called? Yeah. So this is something super classic in agile project management, and it's about mapping the core experience. So essentially, what's one key action your user will get which brings them value? And we're going to answer this question and create something called user stories. Now, these are often used to kind of set up sprints in software development. So if you can understand user stories, you'll be able to really easily communicate this with technical developers, etc. So follow this template. As a blank, I need to blank so that blank. Example, as a general user, I need to log in so that I can access the website backend. So for each feature, you should have a user story. Even things like login, like I've done there. Even things like forgot password. Like, we've got to think through everything, every user story. So these are super easy to lay out. Use ChatGPT to help you lay these out, but create a list of user stories for your product. And then what you need to do is think about basically turning that low fidelity concept we had earlier, where we just had kind of blocks laid out on Figma, and creating a high fidelity design. So everything laid out on Figma. Now, this is something is super important if you're doing this with an agency, is be careful about how kind of designers will charge you. So designers will often want to charge you for laying out every single, we call them dependency, that may occur with your app. For example, if a user clicks this and they haven't filled out this needs to go red. And often what we look for in kind of a modern tradition, a more modern no-code agency, is a kind of a better flow between design and development. So not everything has to be fully laid out and perfect on Figma. A developer should be able to kind of interpret some things, add some things, and for your MVP, this is super important because you don't want to be spending hundreds of hours for a Figma designer. So if you understand art design a bit, I would definitely start yourself. So use these clone UI kits. Figma's got a really great community of just pre-built SaaS things. A lot of these are completely for free. And just that basic thing about how a dashboard should look and kind of the navigation bar, they are so similar across so many SaaS products. With an MVP, it is super important that you don't need to create something wildly different to what other SaaS products look like. That's not a problem for an MVP. So use these. I've given a couple there, like SaaS Blocks, Tailwind UI, UI8, really great UI kits for building a SaaS, and then bring in, once you get stuck, a professional kind of UI UX designer. And then once you've got your user stories and once you've got your Figma design laid out, you are ready to move over to development. Now, development is obviously the kind of main bit behind the SaaS product, and this is the reason a lot of agency owners are put off by SaaS, and the reason they don't ever get into SaaS. I'm sure you'll know by now the barriers to entry to build a SaaS product, to develop software, have massively lowered in the last 2 years. That being said, it's still not the case where anyone can build a software product. Now, you will have undoubtedly heard these terms if you're looking at building a SaaS, but let's talk about the 3 main ways you can use to build a software product. Number 1 is my worst phrase, vibe coding. Always scares me when people mention that. And the reason is because vibe coding is obviously very new. And for those of you who don't know, vibe coding is essentially using tools like Replit and Lovable to AI generate code and generate a SaaS product. Now, I think the best advice I could give about vibe coding is you will try it for 20 minutes and you'll be shocked. You will probably develop 90% of your app idea in 20 minutes. but it's that final 10%, which is what at the moment vibe coding doesn't have the competition on, because you're then going to have to spend time debugging, you have to get professional developers on board, all to kind of finalize that final 10% of the project. There's still loads of API integrations involved, which AI can't take fully. So my friendly advice would be avoid vibe coding, even though it looks tempting, even though it looks great, because it will just bring you more problems than you expect. And the second method is about traditional code. So similar to vibe coding, but you're developing everything from scratch. I think most agency owners would understand now that it's almost pointless to do this, because you're developing an MVP, you're trying to validate your idea, and nowadays the reason people would turn to this is because they don't believe in the power of tools like Bubble. Now, Bubble at the moment handles some SaaS products which have hundreds of thousands of users. Traditional code, you have got so many things to consider in terms of security, in terms of hosting, in terms of compliance and data protection, which will just be a nightmare. So my golden solution would be go for bubble.io. Now, for those of you who don't know what Bubble is a no-code development platform. Super, super simple. Think of it like Squarespace, but for developing software. Bubble will handle all of your hosting, your infrastructure. It's got loads of built-in security features and compliance and data protection, which are huge things when developing a software. So to have these taken care of, or the majority of them taken care of, will be super useful. So Bubble hosts all of its platforms on Amazon Web Servers, which are obviously the biggest in the world. You're super, super safe in terms of security, in terms of how you're hosting things, and it's going to save you not just a huge amount of money, but a huge amount of time and a headache. Something to be clear about Bubble is that it's, I use the analogy there that it's like the Squarespace of software development, but it's not that simple. You cannot just pick up Bubble out of the box and start understanding it. Some of it will come quite naturally to you if you've used things like Webflow in the past, but even if you're using templates in Bubble, you still have to have a technical level understanding, kind of integrating APIs, reading JSON files. Bubble is still not perfect if you are non-technical, and often you will need help developing a project in Bubble. So I'd always recommend that you understand Bubble to an extent. Give Bubble a go, create an account, start understanding the process of building an app, how it works, look at kind of back-end workflows, and that will make the development process with an agency much easier because you understand what is going on. If you do it yourself, fantastic. You're going to be able to save yourself a lot of money. There are some fantastic Bubble courses out there, but for most people, they don't want to have to learn a whole new skill, especially if you're not technical already and don't have an understanding of APIs. I really wouldn't recommend going for this full course of learning Bubble. But if this is a really long-term project, then fantastic. Bubble is a great skill to learn. You will understand development much more to a much greater extent. So Bubble is great, but I would obviously recommend hiring an agency. So when you're looking for a Bubble agency, make sure they are Bubble certified. There are 3 different tiers. There's bronze, silver, and gold. All of them pass the same certification process, but essentially a gold tier will make much more revenue for Bubble than something like a bronze tier. So they've worked with lots more clients. It's also important that you're looking for an agency who is specialized in SaaS. Bubble has loads of different applications to offer, from kind of internal tools you can build to things like mobile apps. But it's super important that you have someone who's not just going to build your idea. You want a collaborative dev partner. You want someone who is going to take your idea, battle test it, and if they believe in your idea, they'll then go ahead and develop it. Not someone who's just looking to develop anything and will just do what you say. You want someone who's going to battle your idea, test your idea, has experience in launching MVPs. And if you can tick off that process, you have officially launched your MVP, which is a fantastic point to be at. Okay, so now you're at the point where you've launched your MVP, and it's super important when you're launching your MVP to not do a big, loud bang of a launch. You want to make sure that you're going to those testers which you spoke to earlier and getting them to test and feedback on their product. My recommendation would be frame it as an exclusive offer a reduced price, give users a private onboarding on a call, and track every insight you can using a tool like Notion. You will find problems with your MVP. It's not going to be perfect out of the box. You're going to have to be working with this dev team to fix any of those problems that may arise. But it's super, super important that you don't just launch it, start taking payments immediately. do what we call a beta test. So have 15, 20, 50, whatever users, and get them to test out your product. Now, here's the exciting part. You have proved your concept. You're going to have a list of feedback from users. You're going to have your whole product backlog of all those features you want to launch. And now you are in the SaaS cycle. You start and you scale by the exact same process. So we're back to validate. So you're gonna have loads of feedback from users. You're gonna have loads of ideas of your own. Make sure they're validated. Go to the users already on your app, go to potential users on your app and find more ideas. Create a basic UI in Figma, ask the same questions, your idea is validated. Prep dev in the same way, go through development in the same way, and keep doing this. And this is how SaaS builds work. And this is how SaaS's scale, at least from the technical side. This is an exciting bit to be. And I often say this MVP development is often the hardest bit. Going from concept to MVP is hard, but building and scaling and seeing your full vision come to life is undoubtedly the most exciting part of launching your SaaS. A few little tips I'm going to give you before you end when launching your SaaS is fulfill user requests from week one manually. So skip any automation, any kind of, a lot of things like two-step authentication or email confirmations. It doesn't have to be in an MVP. Skip it if you don't need it for the MVP. Share your progress on LinkedIn. Building a SaaS is a really, really cool journey. So the more you share about what you're doing, the more signups you're going to have ready for people to use your app. Namelix is great, much better than something like ChatGPT when you're looking for name suggestions for your SaaS. Logos, I'd recommend Brandbird or Looker, which give your SaaS some really cool kind of natural, techie SaaS logos. Record as much as you can using, I would say, Teller for SaaS launches. If you've already got Loom, then fine, but Teller's really, if you haven't used it, it's a much more engaging way of showing off SaaS features. And then create a simple demo hub. So you need to store all of your testimonials, all of your feedback, all of the kind of Loom videos of users onboarding in one place. And you use this to put more features in the backlog and develop your SaaS further. So if you are an agency owner looking to launch a SaaS, it is a super, super exciting journey and a huge opportunity for you to build a super, super scalable and high exit value business. We have a process where we take agency owners in 30 days from idea to MVP launch. We're not the agency who just develops your software and listens to what you say. So we're not just a dev agency, we're here to battle test your ideas, and we're also there to only work on SaaS projects which we believe have high value. So if you're interested in seeing more of the framework, I'm on LinkedIn, email me, oliver@dashboarddaddy.co.uk, and we will chat through your SaaS idea and we will show you the process we use to take your idea from the notebook into a functional form and show you all the other agencies we have worked with. I hope this has been useful and has provided you with some value. Please give it a like and subscribe to my channel for more kind of SaaS videos. But thank you for watching and have a fantastic day. All right, cheers.